Good evening. This is Tomeria Jordan, the host of the CC America podcast, a show dedicated to helping others get mentally fit. What that means is we are sharing stories of faith, inspiration, and transformation. So tonight, I have the awesome and amazing pleasure of interviewing one of my sister friends that I met over 20 years ago at the Appomattox Regional Governor's School for the Arts and Technology in Petersburg, Virginia. We have been blessed to share so many fun memories over the years and have learned a lot on this journey called life. Tonight, we invite you to listen in as we catch up on what's going on in Mo's world. Morgan Johnson is a human resources specialist by trade and has years of experience in various different disciplines, some of which includes, but is not limited to, working as a counselor, working as a manager, and a certified trainer, just to name a few. Morgan has an MBA with a concentration in human resources management from, excuse me, Morgan has an MBA with a concentration in human resources management and services from Averett University and a bachelor's in psychology from Virginia State University. Tonight, we are talking about human resources, career journeys, faith, and more. So let's get started. How are you doing, Morgan?
I'm doing pretty good. How have you been?
Doing well, thank you. So happy that you are joining the show tonight. Really excited to chat with you and find out what's been going on in your world and also talk about all of the many blessings that have been coming your way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and kick this off. Usually, the question I like to start with is, of course, I read your bio, but who do you say Morgan is?
Who am I now? Um, Now I am someone that is more focused in my walk with God. And I say that, you hear people say that all the time, but I say it is more or less he is someone that I speak to when I can't speak to anyone else. Like I was thinking yesterday, I had a lot of different things going on my job and I felt frustrated, overwhelmed, felt like screaming. And I'm just like, because I work in the HR field, I really can't share my day to day life with people just because of certain law violations. So when I want to talk to someone, it's either some type of code or I have to leave out all the intricate pieces to define what's really causing this frustration in my life. But with God, I don't have to do that. I can literally say, listen, Jesus, Sally James Johns Jr., she was asking for a conversation today that I wanted to give her. However, I still have to have that grace that he has for us and say, okay, pull that emotion back. All right. And then proceed with whatever's going on. But I'm human. I have to get that emotion out first because emotion and logic can occupy the same space. And then I'm able to go forward.
Amen. That is so true. And you're right. He is a good listener. Even though we don't hear an audible voice, we know that he hears us because there's always something that he shows us either through someone else or just in life where you're like, oh, you heard me. You see me.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you have had the opportunity to reinvent yourself throughout your career. And what has that taught you about life in general?
I can honestly say it has taught me to continue to be adaptable. So I've only been in the human resource field for about 5 or 6 years now. Originally, as you stated, I was a caseworker. I did counseling. I was in marketing for a while, which is something I was very good at, but it was mentally exhausting. So I would tell anybody that you have to be open to new opportunities. And it may not be an opportunity that you want, but it may be the opportunity that you need. And walking into this field was something I needed because I am a philanthropist at heart. I love helping people. It makes my day. It makes me feel better about life. And I wasn't getting that in the sales piece. I was just selling people stuff they didn't need or stuff they thought they needed. And that's technically not helping people.
That definitely makes sense. And I know how that is when you really feel like you want to give back and you're not able to do that on a regular basis. So totally makes sense. What do you wish you had known when you started your career journey?
I wish, you know what? I can't even say that because I'm hard headed. I could. I would love to say that I wish somebody would have pushed me harder, but I had a very rebellious spirit in my 20s, early 30s. So you could have pushed and I would have just said, okay, I'm listening. But I wish I would have listened to my own self to not quit. Sometimes it's really, really easy to get discouraged when it's not happening. Like it was a period of time where I didn't go straight through school like a lot of my friends. I literally started in 2002, stopped, started back in 2008, finally got my bachelor's, stopped, started school again in 2015, finally got my master's. And it was more or less saying, like, just don't quit, keep going. So I would tell anybody that that particular progression, even though it was hard, and right now it's behind me, but during it, it's something like it took forever. So I would definitely tell myself, like, regardless of what you're feeling, try your best not to feed that emotion. It's okay to feel it, but don't feed it.
Oh, I love that. Remind me that I love that. Feel it, but don't feed it.
Feel
A
it, but
lot of
don't
us
feed it.
can use that. That's really good advice. You know, we've had a lot of conversations over the years, which I'm really grateful for because those little nuggets are so impactful. Feel it, but don't feed it. Mm, you are speaking to me right now. That's all I'll say. So, in your current role, what do you love most about what you do now based on your experiences over the years and in comparison to maybe some of the other roles that you had?
In my current role now, I like the autonomy. So in my previous roles, it was always about someone else having control. And granted, I do have a director that I report to, but if I want to come in at 8 o'clock, I can. If I want to come in at 8:30, I can. As long as my tasks are complete for the day and I stay motivated, he literally just asked, hey, what'd you do today? Let's talk about next steps. I can take my hour lunch and not have to worry about punching in and out or somebody, hey, you're gonna get written up because you didn't get back on time. You know, being able to have that autonomy, but also having the freedom to make decisions. So if I'm talking to a person, because I do a lot of employee relations cases, to be able to talk to people without someone standing over my shoulder, be like, don't say that. That's not okay. Having free range to have those open, honest communication, have those open, honest situations, and have that person be transparent with me because they feel as if the environment is safe, as opposed to my previous positions where it was very stringent. Don't do this. It needs to be this way. And if you're talking to an associate, you can't say this. And I'm able to gauge and respond based upon what I know in my spirit to be true, as opposed to what somebody's telling me, if that makes sense.
Oh, that does. And that I think that is a challenge for most of us because you want to, of course, I hate to say be on your best behavior, but that's what it feels like. It's almost like that relationship between employees and employer where it's more parent childlike
Yep.
versus truly being a situation where you feel comfortable being yourself and having your creative freedom to be yourself, but then also making sure to follow the rules. So
Right.
it's a hard balance, I think, for a lot of us. I know it was for me, especially at the start of my career, because we want to fit in. And
Yep.
then in trying to fit in, you something ends up getting lost. Either you lose your voice or you lose yourself.
Yep. I was just gonna say that you lose yourself because you're trying to focus on, like, well, this is how they want me to be in this environment. And I'm very grateful for my supervisor because he says all the time to me, he's actually a man of God. And we speak about that often. And he says to me, he said, God designed you to be who you are. He said, your challenge is controlling who you are, not taking away from it, but controlling those aspects so you can be a better fit for the people that need you.
Oh, that's a great nugget. Yes, I like that. That is amazing. That's awesome. So speaking of which, because you're in the human resources field, what are some common misconceptions that you think people in general have about HR?
I can honestly say one that I get often is if I'm calling an associate that they're in trouble. And what I try to tell a lot of our employees is a lot of the times I'm calling to help you. I mean, granted, my goal is to protect the company because that's my position, but also to let an associate know all of their options because a lot of them don't. Like, One of the things that I tell people, if the Family Medical Leave Act, which is something that's really, really important. A lot of people don't know that after 12 months of service, working 1,250 hours, you, based upon the size of your organization, you qualify for family medical leave. It's a law. That means that you have 12 weeks. How you're paid depends upon your employer, but you have 12 weeks where you can take care of yourself, take care of a loved one, and your job is secure. It's very rare that a organization will try to fire you during that time unless they have great just cause, because trying to fire somebody where they're covered under the Family Medical Leave Act, it's like going to bat with Jesus. You might as well leave your bat in the car.
Look, good luck with that.
But absolutely. Or the misconception is that I sit at my desk all day and answer emails. I said, and little Johnny could have decided he didn't like little Bobby, and now I have to step in between those two at 8:15 when I literally just walked in the building because you punched little Johnny yesterday because you didn't like what he said, or you punched him this morning because you didn't like what he said. And that takes up a span of my day, or that to be in this position that you don't have to have some type of qualification. I can't tell you how many human resources jobs I apply for, even though I have my MBA. A lot of organizations aren't looking for that anymore. They're looking for what's called a PHR, which is a professional human resource certification, or they're looking for the SHRM certification, which is it's one of the human resource tests that you take. They're looking for people that have that and experience. So I can honestly tell you, just thinking about getting into this field, like weighing your options, deciding if this is what you want, and then go from there.
That makes sense. And ironically, you actually touched on the next question in terms of advice for people who want to get into that field. And many people may not know that. They may think, I've gone back to school, I've paid my dues, I'm doing everything I need to do. And it doesn't quite work that way all the time. So yeah, that's a really good point. Is there any other advice you would give someone trying to break into the field, knowing that they need the combination of the experience, the certifications, and probably the education as a precursor?
The precursor, I would honestly say my undergrad in psychology, I never thought it would translate into my current position, but it does. It taught me how to speak to people, and not just how to speak to them, but to do what's really hard, which is actively listen. So one thing my twin and we practice is when she says something to me, to repeat what she said in my own words, to make sure that whatever she said is what I heard. Because when we started living together, it's like cats and dogs. If anybody knows having a sibling, they can pluck your ever-loving nerves. But it wasn't because we didn't love each other. It's because our communication styles were different. So a good example would be, she said, oh my goodness, what is it? We were talking about an amusement park, and she was just like, Morgan, the Ferris wheel. I said, the merry-go-round? She said, Morgan, it's the same thing. I said, well, just to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, I just want to play it out there. But it's funny because a lot of the times we listen to respond instead of actively listening. So that's one thing I would tell anybody. Work on your active listening. See if you can actually listen to a person without interrupting them. And then what did you take away? Take some leadership classes, because when you get into a human resource position, you are a leader teaching leaders. So that's something important. There are different types of internships that you can step into, because a lot of people don't think about it. Human resources has a sales piece, because you have to get people to buy into what you're saying. It's not about telling them what to do. It's about giving them good counsel. And then from that counsel, hoping that they'll make the best decision. But then also, as my boss would say, taking the sleeve off your knife and putting it down, stop. Counseling's over. We're not, but knowing how to gauge those reactions and who you're talking to.
Speaking of which, with your experience counseling before, that probably translates very well to what you're doing now.
I chuckle because counseling and this are like, counseling was so much harder. It was so much harder because I was aware that a lot of my clients experience maladaptive behavior. And my goal was to get them to channel that behavior into something productive, recognize that behavior, stay on their medication, different things of that nature. So it's very taxing to help a person because they have to want that help. Here, I can give you all the help you want, but if you choose not to take it, that's your choice.
That's true. That's a really, really good point. Um, and I think that goes for a lot of us, even beyond that, like that area. Something that we don't think about is all of us make choices every day,
Mhm.
and sometimes it's easy to blame others for those choices because of things they've done or what have you. And can you explain for our audience members who may not be clear on what the maladaptive behavior means?
So maladaptive behavior means that the person is not normal according to society. That means that there is some sort of, I don't want to say physiological imbalance, but there is a criteria that puts them on a scale to say, hey, there's something called the DSM-5, or it should be like 6 or 7 or 8 now. It's been a while since I've actually been in that field. But basically, it lists a variety of disorders because they've changed that, so it's now maladaptive behavior. When you think people are crazy, that's the word that they like to use. It's not that they're crazy, it's just that there is something within their mental capacity that they're having a hard time grasping, and based upon them not being able to hold on to that, their behavior is something that's not adaptive to the norm of society. So maladaptive behavior.
Makes sense. Thanks for sharing that. I learned something as well. I was like, I bet you a lot of us might assume we know what that means, but not really knowing the full context. I think that does help shed some light on, even what you were stating and how you handle those situations and the communication piece of it.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So, are there any other resources or things that you think people should really look into, who want to break into the field of HR?
In regards to resources, HR is one of those fields that it's a little bit more challenging if you don't know who to speak to or how to speak the lingo. So for me, I actually did this a few months ago when I was unemployed, decided to study for the PHR, one of the human resources certification. And it opened my mind to so much more knowledge than just being in the field, because human resources has a legality point to it. So we have to be aware of employment law and labor law. And then there are union pieces that go to it. And thankfully, I'm not a part of that. But there are a lot of different things that feed into that. So I would tell anybody, pick up an HR reference guide, which basically are look for authors that are in that field. Or SHRM, they have a website where literally, if you want to, you can sign up for a subscription and they will send you articles that go on. You can go into their website and talk to different advisors. You can pull up they have conferences that are virtual now that you can sign up for. They give you all the tools to say, hey, you need this criteria in order to get into this position. It's one of the tools that I use when I thought about pursuing this. It's like, how much experience do I really have? How much education do I need? And it's literally a step-by-step guide to say, this is where you start, but these are good things to have too. Like I said, the leadership piece is really good. Taking a couple of psychology classes, because your coworker that you spoke to today may not have heard you when you said good morning because their child is sick at home. Were you receptive to the change in their facial expression or their body language? Or did you personalize? Did you project your own emotion onto that person to say, well, they just don't like me today? No, ma'am, this has nothing to do with you. They're having a bad day. You have them too. Let's do what we do and treat people better than they deserve and keep it pushing. But I didn't learn those things until I started to educate myself. Like my leader now, he is one of those ones that will challenge you. So literally my second or third week of work, he gave me 12 books to read. And I looked at him,
Okay. By when?
he said, there is no time frame, but I will know if you're reading them based upon the conversations we have.
Okay.
And I told him, like I told him, I said, I don't think I like you. And he said, and that's fine. He said, but the goal is when you're with me is to grow. So I would tell anybody the human resources field is about constant adapting to your environment and not being closed in a box to where you aren't receptive to the changes, because it changes often as far as what laws are pliable, what regulations you can look into, how you can conduct a conversation, like something simple. I'll give you a simple example. So when you're conducting an interview with a person, there are certain questions you can't ask. So if I ask you, how old are you? What are you going to say to me? You'll tell me your age,
I'll
right?
say my age. Yeah.
So by law, you can't ask that question. What I can ask you is, are you of age for this position, which is 18 or older? You see how that question is similar, but it's
Right.
not the same. So just
Right. It's
learn.
like completely different because you're not able to confirm what my age range is, so you can't make a decision based on that.
Right. So yeah, just different things like that. But yeah, definitely just start with the basics. I would definitely pick up one of those reference guides. And, you know, I'm a famous person. I'm a Google if I don't understand. I was like, well, I don't know that SAT word. Let me look at it. just to be candid, because the assumption is also that because you're in this field, my colleagues use a vocabulary that I'm sitting there like, yep, don't understand a word you just said, but I'm gonna Google those when I get back to my office to make sure that when we talk about it later, I got it. And it's no shame in that. Like, we educate
Right.
each other. So being open is big.
You know what? You said a lot in that segment, meaning you talked about perspective and like really recognizing that not everything is about us. You talked about being resourceful and also adapting. So you touched on a lot. So for our listeners, I hope you were catching those nuggets, because you do a lot of things that I'm sure a lot of managers wish their team did, in terms of looking up information, being resourceful, finding the information you need, and being okay with saying, you know what, I really don't know. And that's okay. You learn.
I don't know. Say it again. Can't tell you how many times my coworkers like, she got another question. That's right. I don't know. Say it again.
But you know what? It's good though, because a lot of people don't ask, and unfortunately, when we don't ask, then we're just sitting there, and then information is literally being piled on top of the information that we still don't know. So then
Right.
we're really going to be confused by the time we leave the meeting, as opposed to stopping and being like, okay, can you clarify that point for me, or can you explain it? Can you define something? Say, say something today.
Listen.
So we'll talk about say something Saturday in a moment, but we need to say something today.
Okay, right now. Do you understand? I don't understand.
I love it. So, what would you say was one of the most transformative life experiences that you've had on your journey?
Mm, one of the most transformative life experiences I have was I was 17 or 18, got in some trouble, and it put life into perspective, because whenever you have any dealings, whether it's a speeding ticket, you shoplift, you whatever, whenever you have any type of confrontation with the law, it puts you in a place to where people start to view you differently. And I had this conversation with someone here recently. I said the sad part about it is when people hear the word criminal, regardless of what it is, they close their ears to anything you have to say, because it turns into, you made a mistake that's unforgivable. Even though God forgives us every day, we don't practice that particular golden rule. So I can
Mm.
honestly say that was one of the transformative features in my life that caused me to be very humble. I talk about it in depth, like you said, on Say Something Saturday, and I'm very transparent, because I want people to understand, like, the person that you see now is not the person who I was. And I had to literally self-reflect, pull a lot of pieces out of myself, and recognize that, Morgan, your the reason your actions cause your consequences. Like, you chose to do A, B, and C, and now that's where you are. Now you can't be upset with Johnny, Bobby, little boy Blue, because they were a part of your life at that time, because nobody told you to do that. You decided in yourself that, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And for some of our listeners this evening, I know sometimes you have people that push you in your life to say, hey, do this for that moment. And it's really, really easy to give in because we want to be people pleasers. We want to, like you said, be part of that group. But I can honestly say, taking a step back and recognizing at the end of the day, whatever I choose, I'm going to be responsible for, was life-changing. And it put me on a path to say, I have to do something better. Not I need to, because you can have a need. I need to eat. I need to lose some weight. I need to do my hair. You can have a need, but how bad do you really want it? Because when we want something extremely bad, like when you want a burger and fries, you're going to find a restaurant open at 3 a.m. to get that burger and fries. Why can't we apply that same energy to something that's going to help us progress? And that's what I had to start doing, to put that, like I said, studying for that certification. I wanted to pull my eyeballs out. I literally studied for 2 months straight, 3 hours a day, nonstop. And it was one of the most taxing experiences. And I didn't pass, just so everybody knows. I didn't pass. I came close. And I'm going to take it again when the money comes. But to cut out those pieces of my life to say, hey, yeah, I want to hang out with you this weekend. I want to go to dinner. I want to do these things. But I have something that I want, and I'm going to need to sacrifice to do it. I'm going to need to give this up in order to get it. So that was one of the most humbling experiences in my life. And it also taught me to have grace for other people. So when you see people make a mistake, you made one, you just didn't get caught. You've been in situations where you wanted somebody to forgive you. So why can't we do that for other people?
Well, you just, again, a word, okay? you touched on a lot in that, because you think about what we see now. And yesterday was a really important day in the state of Virginia in terms of like the death penalty. And so, I mean, you're right. A lot of times we are not the people who will give others a second chance, but we want one.
We do.
And so your background in psychology, your personal experiences have all, shaped your perspective. But I think it's a perspective that a lot of us, if we take a step back, and like you said, even your HR experience studying for the PHR, you are still moving forward. You're still pressing through. And even though you're not the same person that you were, like you said, look like where you are now, I'm just grateful that you are just continuing to grow and that you're not letting no's stop you. Because you could have let that stop you and be like, you know what, I give up. Let me do something different, or let me just go back to what's comfortable. Because you have a wealth of experience. You could have easily said, I'm going to go back and do what's comfortable, but you didn't. So I commend you for your transparency, for always sharing your truth, and then also for doing what you need to transform from the inside out. So kudos to you, my sister. Well, I'm proud of you. We've had plenty of conversations. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I can honestly say it's not just me. It takes, like one of the scriptures says, the body is just not the hand, it's not just the arm. It takes all the pieces in order for your body to move. And in order for me to move, I have friends like you, I have my siblings, I have, I still have my mom. And even though, and I laugh because when I tell people about my friend group, we chuckle because my friends are very forward. They're just like, nope, you wrong, stop. That's the end of it. Like, because I don't have friends in my circle. And that's one of the things, having accountability partners is a big, big piece. I don't have people in my circle that are going to say to me, Morgan, you're right. It's always more of a challenge. It's like, well, did you think about it another way? Have you actually talked to that person to see what's really going on? And a lot of the times I'm like, no, I don't want to. They said A, B, and C, and they got what I gave them, and that's fine. But then after I've had an opportunity to channel my emotion into something more productive, I self-reflect. Like one of my close friends, Elizabeth, we say this all the time. She says stuff, and I love her dearly. And I was like, you get on my nerves. And she said, and that's okay. And eats popcorn while she's talking to me. She said, you finished being mad, baby? Now, what did I say? I said, you know what, you're right. I didn't want to hear that. but I needed to. It's not like I say that all the time. It's not something that I wanted to hear. Now that situation, that was a need. I needed to hear people say, hey, this is what it is. Like one of the rappers that I like to listen to, his name is called NF, and he has this song called Green Light. And in the song, he was just like, I don't need people in my corner trying to gas me. I need people in my corner trying to check me. So I need people now check me with respect. Let's be clear. You can't just come to me in this type of way because you don't want me to approach you that way.
Right.
It's the same respect. Like that has really, that above anything else has helped me quite a bit to be able to lean on people that I know that when the situation is reversed, they can lean on me too.
I like that. So speaking of saying something, can you tell everyone about Say Something Saturday that you started on Instagram, and just a little bit of background, excuse me, on what led up to that and what you hope to gain by hosting these sessions?
So I was having a conversation with, oh my goodness, Annette, their name just popped right out of my head. But the conversation, that's what it was. I was talking to one of my friends about, his name is Pastor Michael Todd. And he talks about the different things that God can give from you. His church is called Transformation Churches in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And in your singleness, which I am, he talks about the different things that God will put you through in order to get to your purpose. So he'll provide a place, he'll provide provision, he'll provide purpose, and then he'll provide a person when you fulfilled all the things that he has for you. But in order to start those steps, you have to be vulnerable. And when you choose to be vulnerable in God's field, he will protect you because he knows that you're putting everything on the line for him. And when I heard that, I said, you know, God, it's very hard for me to be vulnerable because everybody has something to say, which popped into my head. I was like, well, say something. I'm about to say something. Say something. But to put it in a light of, I'm going to say these things, but I'm going to support it in my faith. And your faith doesn't have to be my faith. I like to give real life situations as far as different things that I've read in scripture and different things that have come to me in just my one-on-one moments with God, different things that I'm just like, you know, God, like this morning, I was thinking of an episode and I was listening to, I like to listen to my Bible when I'm getting ready in the morning. And I was listening to the story of the Moses when he was freeing the Israelites from Egypt. Heard the story 1,000 times. But listening to it this morning, it was one of those things where it was just like the revelation hit me. He was like, how many times does God have to tell you to let go of something before he puts you in a situation where it hurts so bad that you're forced to let go? And literally, that's what he did to Pharaoh. He challenged him time after time, gave him the opportunity to repent. He went back, repent, he went back, repent, he went back, until that last plague, which was the death of the firstborn, that was something that cut him so deep, a loss that he couldn't say he didn't see. And he threw his hands up in the air and was just like, you know what, God, you got it. Tell those fools to get out of Egypt. Let them go. Leave. Goodbye. Take everything with you. Get out of my town. But it took for God to break him to the most minute point, that to be little, to be the littlest man on the totem pole in order to let it go. And I was just like, wow. So just those different pieces, because I've heard that story since childhood and
Right.
never, ever thought that it would segue into my life until I decided to give back to God. Like, and I can say this now. So literally, and it's funny that we're having this conversation tonight. So last year, March 26th, I decided to stop having sex with people. I said, you know what, God, I'm ready for a husband. Not really, but I want to put myself in a position to say, when he does come, I'm not distracted by everything else around me. And literally, once I decided to give them, because you can't outgive God, you can't sacrifice more than he can. Once I started that one step, which may not seem big for a lot of people, but it was big for me. I've been having sex since I was 17 years old. And, you know, it's been a coping mechanism. It's been a comfort. And it was literally like taking away the safety net and having to walk a high wire and still having faith in God to say, if I fall, you're going to catch me, even though there's no net. So that was one of the biggest pieces I had to give up. And based upon giving up that piece, now I'm not even gonna sit here and pretend that it happened overnight. That would be a lie. I had plenty of times where I was looking at my phone like, don't call him. Don't look at him. Don't go to the gym that he's at, girl. Just like it was literally a challenge to just don't answer his text messages. Don't do it. Or he'll go out to eat and he walks into the restaurant and you don't eat here.
Look, that's why you need to delete people. Delete.
I had to delete him. I had to block him. I had to change my gym membership because I know my weaknesses. And a beautiful man, dark skin, my goodness. And he doesn't have just a beautiful man, and not necessarily to say physically beautiful, but mentally beautiful. Like we can have that conversation. We can connect. But someone that's not afraid to push me is very attractive, but can also be very trapping because they want to push me, but not push yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of those aspects, to your point, is one, recognizing what it is. Like I'm going through my own battle with, I like to eat, but part of my transformation is I need to delete that food. I need to throw it in the trash if I know it's not helping me. So I totally get it. We all have different things that we like, that we battle with. We have our coping mechanisms, like you said, our safety net, and it really is trying to figure out, okay, how can I trust that you have me? But he keeps showing us time and time again, and we're still like, I just want to try it. Well, maybe you don't have my back this time. Maybe you need my help. And he's like, I never needed your help, but we think he needs our help. So it's like, maybe he doesn't know that I'm looking for a job. Let me help him. You know what? There's a lot of different jobs that people can go and pick up. Maybe like, okay, my temptation. Say for instance, I like to drink, and I'm trying to quit drinking, and then I'm like, okay, well, God, I need a job, but I'm gonna go be a bartender, knowing that I have struggled with alcohol. So it's like the same thing. I was trying to think of a good example, but literally for me, that's like me knowing I like dessert, and then I decide that I'm about to go work at Cold Stone. That would be a disaster. Exactly. The reason I brought up Cold Stone is I wanted Cold Stone last night. I did still end up getting dessert, but I fasted this morning because I am working on that. I'm working on breaking that habit because for me, I really like the sugar. But to your point, one, we have to identify it, and then we have to say, okay, I'm going to trust God to help me with this, whatever this is. And I've had a lot of things that I feel like I'm working through even now. Is that you mentioned earlier, people pleasing.
Yep.
I'm working through that as we speak. So I may do things, I may say things that not everyone's going to like, but that's okay. Everyone didn't accept Jesus either, but he shook the dust off his feet and he kept going. So for me, you've known me for years. I want everyone to can't we all just get along? Sometimes we can't.
Like, if you don't get out my face, me. But listen, that was before Jesus, because I'm just like, my sister reminds me of this time where you said that in reference. I was always the sharp tongue instead of the people pleaser, because me. What was it when we were doing? We used to belong to this dance team in high school, and I'll never.
Why was I picturing that? I was like, was that one of my dance team moments?
It was. And we were gonna wear these outfits. I can't even remember, but it was when the Cisco song came out.
The song.
Yep. And we were gonna wear these outfits, and one of the girls in our groups was just like, "I'm not wearing that."
Oh, I remember.
My whole head, you would have thought I was an owl. My head said. And before I knew it, my mouthpiece, I was on this young lady before I knew it. And it was just like, Morgan, I said no, because she always got something to say. I'm tired. Everybody else want to do it with you. Such and such and such. Like, it's funny now. But when I think about it,
I remember it.
It's funny in this moment, but as I reflect on it, that young lady, what she shared with me later is she had insecurities about different parts of her body, which is why she felt uncomfortable. And I was not sensitive enough at that time in my life, nor am I expecting a 15 or 16-year-old to be, because we're learning. But as I reflect back on that, there were other ways I could have addressed that situation. And we did, we changed the outfit up. But that one step, like skipping that step, would have been better leading into that.
So it's funny, you've actually said say something a few times during today's show. So which episode has been your favorite by far that you've recorded?
I can't think of the name. Resilience. Yep.
Okay.
Resilience is my favorite because, like I said, I like to listen to my Bible in the morning, and it talks about the story of Joseph. And I was talking to my older sister, Lauren, and I said, sis, do you recognize how much Joseph went through and he didn't once curse God? Like literally from beginning until end. So you went from being your father's favorite child to your brothers, like you shared a dream with them, because you can't share your dream with everybody. You shared an intricate piece of your life with people, and they started to hate you for it. Their hatred grew into wanting to kill you. They took from wanting to kill you to sell you into slavery. You're falsely accused and thrown into jail. You're forgotten about for 2 years and then released into a place to where now you still have to do God's will. You still have to let him move in your life. You still have to give all the glory to him and be his representation after everything that you've been through. When I can say that piece pushes me, because some days I'm just like, not today. Not today. Like I find myself, and when I reach those moments, I get teary-eyed because I'm like, God, I'm tired. I'm over this situation. I'm over feeling these things. I'm over this experience. And he's just like, I got you. I've got you in a place where now whatever I'm asking you to do, you're going to be open to. And that's not for everybody. That's just how me and God get down, because he knows I have to be in a breakable space in order for him to get it. I'm like, as I said earlier, I'm hard-headed. So he literally has to come down and wait with the hammer. He's like, nope, she's not ready to crack yet. I'm gonna wait. Okay, she's ready, and literally crack me open to say, hey, this is what I need you to do now. This is the path that I need you to take. So that resilience, it's funny because that's been my life literally from 17 till now, from being told, no, you're not going to do this, or you can't do this, you're too dark, like the whole colorism thing, or you're female, you can't do that, or you don't have the experience for this, or no, we're not hiring people like you, or no, I don't think you're going to represent us well because you don't speak eloquently enough, because you don't use these 60 syllable SAT words. And a lot of the times you don't have to do that in order to get someone to listen. Like if you want me to stomp around in the ballroom with you and put on my dress and these heels and do that, I can do that. But do I need to in order to get my point across? Or do you hear me at a family style restaurant where we're sitting here eating a slice of pizza and sipping some Coke, which it doesn't matter which environment we're in, but which one are you more receptive to listen? And God knows that he said, you hear me more when you're down here than when you think that your elevation comes from you and not me.
That's deep. Say something. Okay. Yes, that is a really good point in terms of resilience, because you and I have had plenty of conversations about what people have told us we can't do. Like clearly, if I would have listened to the teacher who told me I couldn't get into the Appomattox Regional Governor School, you and I wouldn't have met probably.
Or that you could be a model, because let me tell y'all, this girl's a flat model, okay? But
thank you, Bill.
But just that, or that you're beautiful for who you are. You don't have to be this cookie cutter version of who people think you are. Like, I don't know if you follow Sade, that we used to go to school with, the dancer.
I do, yes. She's teaching fitness classes now.
She is, and she posted something here recently that brought tears to my eyes that I never knew. And because she's biracial. And
I didn't know that.
She's biracial. And one of the stories that she posted, she said that it was really hard growing up, knowing that your grandmother doesn't like you because your legs are thicker than everyone else's. And I was like, I don't see that. What are you talking about? But getting into her adulthood and just realizing her truth to say there are dancers out here that look like me. There are dancers
Right.
out here that I can aspire to be. And she's a successful dancer, been all over the world traveling, did a
Yes.
rendition of Lion King where she was in there, like amazing, amazing woman. And I had to stop and tell her how amazing she is, because that's how we grow, supporting each other. But I say that to say, in reference to just people telling us what we can't be, and seeing so many people push through that, because you are definitely an inspiration to me. Like, we've had plenty of conversations where I was like, Tia, I'm about to just hang it up. And you was like, no, you're not.
And likewise, we push iron sharpens iron, and I feel like we've been there for each other
Right. So, yeah.
because we've both been told some crazy stuff.
Listen, if we could have an unfiltered edition without any consequences,
Exactly.
people have said some very, very hurtful things to be a woman of color. And no, I'm not trying to say, racism, blah, blah, blah. I'm just speaking in general. Sometimes people say
Right.
stuff not even realizing that what they say is hurtful, but
Oh, so true.
because it sounds good to them, that's all that matters.
Oh, that's a whole other. Oh my gosh, that's a whole other topic that we definitely will have to tackle one day for sure. Because you are spot on. A lot of people don't think about the consequences. They don't think about those things that they say, and in their mind, they're like, "Oh, I'm who I am," or "I keep it real." And there's a time and a place. And
It is.
you and I, we've always talked about that in terms of like how people communicate. A lot of times they don't think about it. Now, I don't know if you remember this, and you actually taught me a very valuable lesson. And I don't know if you remember, we were at your house and we were talking about music. And oh no, matter of fact, I told someone in our school, they said they made a song. And I said, "Oh, you threw some notes on a piece of paper and you called it a song." And you told me, you were like, "Tomeria, that was rude." And in the moment, I was in high school. I was like, but I wasn't trying to be rude. That's what you do. You put the notes on a piece of paper because my background was in music, and I knew you put the notes on the paper because they would have us do it as an activity. And
Right.
it's a song. So I was like, "Oh, you threw some notes on a piece of paper and called it a song." And in my head, it was funny, but I didn't think about it until you told me that that was like mean, because I never want to be mean or hurt people's feelings
Right.
because that's not even my personality.
At all.
I never thought about it until you had the reaction you just had. But you had that reaction. We were at your house, and I think I had told someone that we were at school in the recording studio, in the basement at the school. So in my mind, I was like, but that's what happened. But how it came out was not a good
And it was
reflection.
completely innocent, no malicious intent. And that's kind of what
No.
I'm telling people. Like, sometimes we say, because I have myself my boss, my boss here recently. He says this all the time. He said, sometimes, Morgan, because I call him bougie, and he is. I've never seen somebody with a chrome plated keyboard, so he's
Oh,
bougie.
okay.
So, but we joke about it, but I say to him all the time, he said, you know what, Morgan? He said, you challenge me at certain moments. He said, and I don't think I like that. Like, I had this project where we have onboarding. So basically to put together these thank you bags to say thank you. And the
Nice.
list of things that I was going through, he was just like, no, I don't like that. I don't like that either. And by the 10th time, because I've revised this 10 times now. So at the 10th time I sat in his office, I said, is it for you though? And I didn't recognize in that moment that probably wasn't the best way to say that.
Probably not. Not to your boss. Oh my God. You live and you learn though. You realize like, okay, that I probably shouldn't have said that. That's when you don't say nothing. As our parents would say, don't
That
say anything else.
yeah, so he closed the office door and was like, listen, don't come to me like that. Mm-mm. I said, I said, let me recant my statement. It's not for you though. It's for the associates. But he was just like, there's a better way to say that. More or less to say to him, should we be as selective in this? Because it could change tomorrow.
Right.
See how that he communicated that to me. And I was like, I like my way better, but
It's a lesson learned though, but I think that's the thing. You have to be coachable, and all of the different experiences you've had. I will say that, like, you are coachable, and I feel like I am too. Like, you coached me in that moment, not even realizing. I remember us literally standing outside and you having the reaction, and I was like, "Oh, that wasn't my intent,"
it
but that's what
wasn't.
I said. And so when I'll say you check me indirectly, oh, that rhymes. I was a poet and didn't know it. Okay.
Let's
So,
keep going. Keep going.
so I was like, oh my gosh, I always remember that. And it reminds me of a sermon I heard recently by Pastor Stephen Furtick. And he
Nice.
said, stuff you just say in anger, people live with for a decade. Let
Ooh,
that sink in. So
that's
to your point, what you were saying, I was like, oh my gosh, this is spot on. So with regard to say something Saturday or say something Saturday, which I did share it on the screen, and I'm going to put it back up here for everyone to see. How they can find it on Instagram. Again, you can follow Morgan at MRS, and it's M.R.S. And on Instagram, she has the hashtag Say Something Saturday. So I have listened to them, and I'll say that I love the different topics that you talk about and also how you talk about them, because like you're being transparent here tonight, that's what we get on your episodes. It's real, it's short, it's to the point, but I think it really is helpful for a lot of people. Whether they tell you or not, they see it.
the goal is. My mother said to me here recently. She said, "Morgan, do you look at your views on Instagram?" And the first two episodes I did, and I talk about it in one of my episodes, comparison. And I became really discouraged because one of my really close friends, her name is Brittany. She's amazing, and she has this awesome podcast. It's international. She has her own trademark. She's doing these awesome things, and I was like, I don't want to compete with that. And literally, God gave me that episode. He said, "Why do you feel like you need to compete?" He said, "Similar does not mean same. You all have similar gifts. You do. But the way you deliver them, the group that you reach, the people that see whatever you need to see, it's not the same group of people." So still, he said,
Amen.
if one person listens to it, that's all I ask you to do. One person, because I get up sometimes and I'm just like, Jesus, I don't want to do this today. But he'll push me, and it's just like, but I need you to, regardless of what's happening, I need you to still push through this and do this, which, speaking of which, I need to start another season. Because I think 10 per season is going to be my cap. Because what a lot of people don't know from even what you do, it takes a lot of time, it takes energy. You have to edit it, you have to hope that your sound comes in good. And if the background noise is in there, it's kind of like, well, it's just going to have to stay in there because it's not coming out, but putting everything into it. And when I recognize that my friend, when she does that, or even when you do it, that you all put so much time, effort, and energy into it, it's nothing to be compared to. It's something to admire. And I told her that. I said, you inspire me to keep going. Like when I see your stuff posted on IG, I'm like, she's still going. Because most people don't know. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're a small business owner, you take care of family, you help other people without them asking. Like you do all these amazing things for people. You exhaust so many different pieces of yourself, not because you have to, but because you can, and it's your desire to. And I can honestly say, having people in my circle that do that when I want to quit, when I want to stop, pushes me to keep doing it.
Thank you. And I'm so proud of you. Like we get to talk, maybe not as often as we did in high school, but whenever we do talk, we might be on the phone like 3 or 4 hours. But
True, true.
we cover so much ground. It's like we never miss any time in between. And it's always really inspirational. And when I get off the phone, I'm feeling pumped up, like, okay, what can I go and tackle next? And so I'm just grateful that I'm able to do some of that for you as well, because it's really exciting to have friends in your life for years that you see the growth, you see the transformation. And so that was one of the reasons I say, you know what? Whenever you're ready, I would love to have you on, because you
Don't
do
let her
have
don't
some.
let her fib to y'all. She blindsided me. She said, "Girl, I'm gonna have you on my show."
Because you know why? Because you have something to say. Okay,
I said, I
that's
don't get a
why.
choice in this. She was like, no, I'm ready to say.
You know what's funny? A lot of people I'll mention it to, they're nervous, but I want to be the person to give to be able to highlight and share other stories because a lot of people don't realize that to your point earlier, that comparison. I remember listening to that one and I said, "Oh, Morgan is on it. Like this is so spot on." Like similar is not, it's not same. And so many of us get caught up in that because of what social media almost has done to us psychologically is it creates that comparison and you're looking at your likes. But I heard a social media strategist say recently, she was like, I don't care if you like it, did you see it? And so when you look at your impressions, and I realized she's right. I looked at my impressions and I was like, when did that many people see my post? Because if you look at my likes, it may not be in the
Maybe
thousands,
3.
but it literally, if you look at your impressions on Instagram, you might realize, oh wow, over the last 30 days, from my profile, over the last 30 days, 7,300 accounts reached.
Wow.
And I'm like, when I look at my content interactions, I'm like, wait a minute. So then if you press further and you look, so that was just between January 24th and February 22nd. I look at my impressions, 27,880. And because Instagram only shows, and same thing with Facebook, they only show your content to about 10% of your audience. Well, the account activity, the profile visits, like when you look at that, you're like, okay, it may be a lot less. It may be in the thousands or the hundreds. It really just depends. But if you start looking up some of the big names, like Nike, theirs is less than 1 percentage point for content interaction. Like
Wow.
the actual engagement of the likes and the follows and the shares. But a lot of us don't think about that. And so when she told me that and she showed us how to look at it, she said, you might be worried because you don't get a lot of likes. And she said, I used to be that way too. But then I realized a part of the algorithm is to get you to engage. To engage, you have to be on social media a lot more than you probably are. And a
Uh-huh.
lot of us, like you said, you have a full time job, family, whatever it is that you have going on, you may not have that kind of time. And this is why people are paying social media brand strategists to do it for them because to engage and create those, to build those relationships on social media platforms, which is what they're created to do, it takes a lot of time. Similar to
Yeah,
what you said about podcasting. It's what people don't see when you're up in the middle of the night. If Nadia's here, I'm literally up in the middle of the night editing the show.
yep.
That because
Mine.
that's when I can get it done. And I get it done. And then I'm like, okay, I did something that I wanted to do for me, but I also want to make sure that I'm present. So just know that I appreciate the compliment and I'm proud of you. And I think that you just keep doing what you're doing because whoever, like you said, is supposed to see what you're doing, they will see it. And you also never know who you're inspiring. And the reason I said what I said is they may not always tell you, they may not always like it, but they see it. Know that
That's
people
fair.
are watching you, whether you know it or not. Your quotes are very powerful that you post. So keep going. So my goal is to spotlight the people who don't think others see them or who they think, okay, you know what? I might have a small audience, but I really want to help people. I want to help transform their minds. I want to help build their spirit. That's my goal. I'm like, whoever is supposed to hear it will hear it.
That's right.
And so I'm okay with that now. So I'm glad you're okay with that and you're not letting that stop you. So we have talked about faith quite a bit. What role has faith played in the rest of your journey in terms of how you move from A to B?
Um, I can honestly say faith is a foundation now as opposed to a bumper sticker. It's 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 one of those things that I don't succeed at all the time because that will be a lie. But I'm also not in a place where my faith is because at one point in time, you were in this moment of my life. We were visiting one of our friends in South Carolina, and I told you, I said, I don't believe in God, not in that space. And as my peer group, and I can honestly say this is why I love my friends, because even though their walk with God at that time was way stronger than mine, never once did they make me feel less than. Never once did you or Taiwan come to me and say, you know what? You're not going to church. You're not doing this. You didn't read your word. You're not blah, blah, blah. You loved on me. And you continue to love on me until I was able to get into a place where I could see God for myself, not what people told me, not another person's testimony. Because when people ask me about my faith and why I choose to be a Christian, why I choose to follow God, I said, I'm going to give you my real life experiences. I can't tell you about James and Peter over here, but I can tell you the different things in my life that should never have happened. Like a good example, when I lost my job in June. I lost my job in June of last year because not because of COVID or anything, but because my organization merged with another and they relocated, and I wasn't going. just to be transparent. And I'm sitting here, and most people that, if you don't know, unemployment, the maximum payout benefit is like $400 a week. So that's if you are making $2,000 to $3,000 every 2 weeks, and they cut that to $400 a week, that's nothing.
Right.
That's nothing. And I'm sitting here and I'm just like, God, I said, first of all, I didn't get my unemployment for the first 4 weeks because what's going on in our society, everybody was trying to get it. So I'm sitting here like, God, how are these bills going to get paid? Like, what am I going to do? And literally my last paycheck, I was short a week. And I remember sitting in my room crying, and I was like, come on. I said, I'm already out of my job. I'm short hours. Like, what are you doing? And I called my old boss at the time, and she, talked to the people that cut my checks. The next pay cycle, when I got my check, I had an unexpected bonus. And the bonus was double what my paycheck was because we stayed on during the process of them shifting to another state. And that was money I wasn't supposed to get. And I said, oh, okay, all right. And God was like, you don't believe me. Let me show you. You don't believe. Literally, all of my unemployment money that I didn't think I was going to get showed up at the same time, literally 2 weeks later. So I got that on top of the extra money, all of in my account at the same time. And I was like, okay. He said, no. He said, you keep saying, okay, you don't believe. You don't believe. Let me show you again. So I invest in at that time, a 403B, which is a retirement plan for nonprofit organizations. And I was investing 5% here, 6% there, nothing crazy, but they match your contribution. But the kick is you have to be with the organization for 3 years in order to keep the match. And I was only with the organization for 2 years and 6 months because my employment stopped. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to get my $1,000 out and call it a day. And literally the lady called me up and she said, oh, no, we have about $4,000 we're going to give you.
Oh, wow.
I said, what? She said, yeah. Where do you want this check to be cut to? I said, are you serious? She said, yeah. So however it turned out, that match criteria, I became qualified. Money that I didn't think I was going to have. And literally, I say this because not just that, within that same window, when I started this job, the hot water in my hot water heater in my house went out. My electrical box short-circuited, literally, and it's not figurative, literally turned to ashes to where my house could have burned to the ground. And because of I didn't spend this money, I sat on it, I had money to fix all these things. And I was sitting there, and one of my friends had to bring it back to me. She said, Morgan, remember all the blessings God gave you over the summer? Remember how you stewarded that money? You didn't squander it. And now you're about to go through that season, like Joseph told Pharaoh, you're going to go through this drought. You're going to go through this season. And I literally went through that season, and I had just got my job. And I'm sitting here trying to explain to my boss, literally no power in my house 2 days after Christmas, sitting outside in my car, rocking, like, Jesus, what am I going to do? How do I call this man and tell him that this is happening and he's going to believe me? And he said to me, he said, Morgan, I knew from the day I hired you, your character. He said, God sent you to me for a reason. Take care of whatever you need to take care of. And if you need something from me, let me know.
Amen.
So when I tell people about my walk with God, I said, that's my experience. And did those things feel good? No, I would be a bald-faced liar to say that sitting out in my car in the dark, in the middle of the night, trying to figure out what was going to happen. But my
Right.
sister opened her home to me. My mom opened her home. They didn't have to do that. They could have told me to figure it out. You know what I'm saying? I could have squandered that money. Or my twin who lives with me, she helped me. My father, who's retired, bless his soul, he helped me. You know, different people that
Right.
didn't have to do a thing for me stepped in, not because they had to, but because that was the path that God put before me. And like I said, I won't sit here and pretend to say that it felt good, it was great,
Right.
because it didn't. I cried. Like literally, my hot water heater went out. Have you ever been in a house with no hot water? That is for the
Oh,
birds.
you boil it. I remember those days. You put it on the stove and boil it, and then you have to
Listen,
wait for it to cool off, or you put cold water in there
washing
and
up in
wait.
the sink, hoping that
Yes,
that'll get
the
fixed.
bird bath.
Okay. Or even to the point where one of my really close friends, and this is the piece that I forgot, we inherited a house from my parents. And it may sound great, but there was no repair work done to this house for 10 years. So you can imagine all the nice little gifts I've been finding. And literally, I wish I had a picture. My bathroom sits on the back side of the house. And the whole back side, if I can find that picture, the whole back side of my house was rotted through.
Oh no!
The whole backside to the point where the ceiling had water streaming into my house. Like literally
Oh
when it rained
wow!
outside, it rained in my house. It wasn't a pretend moment. And I remember sitting there telling one of my friends, I said, it's raining in my house. Like
Oh
it's
wow!
it's literally raining in my house. And I remember sitting there crying and I'm just like, God, I said, you can't be serious. Like it's raining in my house, and due to the rain in my house, there's now a hole in my floor that's about this big.
Oh my gosh!
My toilet is leaning towards the ground, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, Jesus, this can't be life. Like this can't be happening. And
Right.
literally, I was just like, God, I said, and people's like, you're exaggerating. It wasn't that bad.
Oh my gosh! Wow!
So I don't know
That's
if viewers, if you
crazy.
know, I can definitely send this picture
Oh
so
yeah,
she
I
can.
can see it. Wow, that's
But
crazy.
that whole backside of my house was rotted, whole backside, and right above the window right here, that's where the hole was.
Wow, that's
So, or like
crazy.
when I say to people, they're just like, Morgan, you're exaggerating. That's not what to exaggerate for. What
I
reason are we?
was gonna say why.
What reason are we exaggerating for? I said, why am I telling people something that's not true? Or my fuse box, if you can see the
That's
char marks and
crazy.
ashes inside the box.
God, let me just say, God is good. You are so right because that could have been very different.
It could. That's why when people ask me why my faith is the way that it is, that's why. And it's not like, well, God's been doing such and such and so. Of course you feel no. And I almost said a 5-letter word and I had to catch myself. That's
Wait,
my
oh
word of
gosh.
choice. I caught it in that moment because I felt the passion behind it. I was like, no, no.
Like bring it back in. Reel it
I
back.
did.
Reel it
I
back
did.
in.
I felt it. It was just like, not that word, Morgan, not that word. I said, because I've been doing really good. I was like, don't use that word. Think of stars, sprinkles, fudge and sickles, anything else except that A.
No,
Just
absolutely not. Right. Reel it back in. Reel it back in. Look, that's when you have friends like me, like, girl, reel it back in.
no, not that word. But literally that particular piece, like that's what drew my faith in. Because the second that I started to give up stuff, God started to say, okay, I'm going to give you this. It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to
Right.
help you through this. You're not going to understand, but I'm going to help you through this. You're not going to get it, but I'm going to guide you. You're going to want to quit, but I am the lamp unto your feet and the light unto your path. I am pushing you where you're going. I am the person when you hear people, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, like I still get scared, but I'm not afraid.
Mm.
I still have those moments where I want to hide. Like say something Saturday, it's very scary for me. I get up there and I joke and I laugh. It's very scary for me. But I've learned, even though it's scary, to not be afraid.
And that's a word you can stand on for sure. So before we wrap up, there's one more question I have for you. What is one personal affirmation that you live by?
You know what's funny is my boss said something to me today because I was dealing with, literally because I'm off tomorrow. Everybody has a fire in their house. And that's the term we use when employee relations issues break out all over. And I'm just like, everybody in my region's house is on fire because I'm off tomorrow. So I had to put these fires out before I can go home. And he was just like, Morgan, guide them, don't tell them.
Oh,
When you guide people, if something doesn't work, then they're more than likely to come back and seek your counsel. When you
true.
tell somebody something, when you have that dogmatic personality, I'm going to tell you, they will fight you step by step. I'm a testimony to that. Don't tell me, don't, please suggest, please have an open conversation with me. But at the end of it, whatever decision I make is going to be mine. You are telling me
Right.
anything. But when he said that, it was just like, give them great counsel, show them what is needed. And if it doesn't work, support them into a place where they will now come to you and say, how can I fix this? As opposed to, let me tell you what you're going to do. I don't know about you. I don't respond well to that. And neither do those people.
Right.
So guide you, not tell you.
It's so true. Really great point. I like that. I love that is what I'll say. So, on that note, we just want to thank you all for tuning in and checking us out tonight. I really had a blast with my sister friend Morgan, and I know that you will be blessed by this episode. Definitely share it because you never know who can be blessed by the testimony. Because at the end of the day, we are all overcome by the power of our testimony. And
Amen.
sometimes, even if it's something that you don't think that you need, you never know who does need it.
True.
So, know that I will be posting Morgan's link in terms of how you can get in contact with her on social media. I will also be posting her hashtag for Say Something Saturday. I know that you will love it because I know it has helped me. A lot of the lessons that she shares are really powerful. And so I'm going to put it back up on the screen really quickly so you all can see it. Again, you can follow her on IG at Mrs. Johnson. That is M.R.S. Johnson on Instagram. And then also say underscore something underscore, that's SUMTHING underscore Saturday on Instagram. So thank you again, Morgan, for your time. And to all of our listeners, be blessed.
Amen.